Hey everybody, Mort here with the patch 10.17 rundown. As always, this is a preview of things coming in the patch on Wednesday. We'll take a look at some of the changes coming and go over why they're happening. So with 10.16, what we saw is a generally very healthy meta. A lot of comps can be successful, especially if they get the right items and they get built together right, and lots of different champs and comps can succeed. We're in a pretty good spot overall. So our goal with this patch is to not shift that too much, but just take a few of the things that are performing a little too consistently or a little too well in certain cases and just nudge them down just a little bit to try to end up with an even healthier meta at the end. But again, what you're going to see is a bunch of very small microscopic changes to try to accomplish that, because we don't want to wildly shift what is a very healthy meta. This is sort of the goal of TFT, if we can get the game in a good spot, that we don't have to make a bunch of big shifting changes. So let's talk about what those changes are. First up, we have the new galaxy called Manatee's Delight. Pretty straightforward one. At the start of the game, just like Galactic Armory, there's a gold orb, except this time you open it up, and there's a spatula. So when you see this galaxy, you can make some pretty interesting decisions right away. Pick up a rod, go battle cast, pick up a belt, go protector. Should open up some pretty interesting decisions there. So straightforward galaxy, should be enjoying that. And that'll be replacing Binary Star. So Binary Star is going away. You won't see that galaxy anymore starting with 10.17. And for those who are going to ask, what about Dwarf Planet? Because that's their other least favorite one. That'll be gone in 10.18, so I'll tell you that right now. But yeah, enjoy the new galaxy. I'll be interested to see what kind of comps people pull out with this one. On the trait side, there's only one change we're making, and it's a very light one. Snipers have been overperforming a little bit, both in the sniper comps and the cybernetic, actually, with Vayne being sort of the primary carry there, running 2 cybernetic. So again, we're just nudging it as small as possible. Snipers going from 10% per hex to 9% per hex, and from 18 to 16 at 4 sniper. This should be a very slight nudge to snipers. They'll still be good. They'll still be your primary damage carries, just a little bit less consistent than they are right now. So that is the only trait change. On the champion side, when we look at the 1 costs, Jarvan is overperforming just a little bit for how much he's played. He's actually the most played 1 cost in the game. So again, we're just going to nudge him. 5 armor being taken off of Jarvan, so he's just a little less tanky, a little less consistent, and shouldn't be the obvious first grab. On the other side, Poppy is underperforming a little bit. So again, we're doing one of the smallest nudges we can do, which is she gains 5 magic resist. She'll be a little bit better in the late game when there's lots of spells, maybe a little bit better of a choice in a 4 Vanguard comp where you've already got plenty of armor. So should just be a small nudge. So Blitzcrank, this one's interesting because when we look at some of the various comps that need adjustments, one of the big ones right now is actually the Jinx comps, the Brawler Blaster comps that are underperforming, as well as the Chrono comps. But so rather than buffing those units directly, because they're already doing a lot, we were looking for a way to buff them indirectly. In this case, we saw a good avenue here to make Blitzcrank sort of that big metallic robot be a little bit tankier. And so this will buff Brawlers and Chrono, which we think both kind of need the buff right now. So Blitz gets to go from 45 to 60 armor, gets to be a little bit better of a front line, buying Jinx that time, buying other comps that time. So yeah, Blitz should be a little bit better of a unit here. On the 3 cost side, Cassiopeia still in a good spot. We don't see her play as much at the absolute top level, but even in the Grandmaster and Masters level, she's still played quite a bit. She's still doing very well. The problem is she's not really a win condition. She falls off in the late game, and we want the 3-star version of her to be a little bit more of a win condition. So she gets to have a bit more spell damage at 3-star only, so that if you hit that, you can actually seal the deal with that comp. Master Yi, still overperforming just a little bit. We saw this be played a lot at the qualifiers. We're still seeing this on ladder. A lot of people really struggling to deal with the Master Yi comp. So again, lightest touch possible. We are taking 5 damage off of his spell. So that means it goes from 75 to 70, 100 to 95, 150 to 145. Very light touch. So it'd still be good. Just a little bit more fair could make the difference. Nico. Miko is actually one of the better performing 3-star champions at 3 cost, to a degree that's really insane, actually. So we're just pulling a little bit of the damage out of her 3-star level. Should still be very powerful, just a little less free damage, blowing up entire teams. And lastly is Shaco. Shaco has been also overperforming a little bit. And again, we're talking just microscopic changes. So he loses 5 armor. What this means is he won't be able to take quite as much damage in between each cast, and should allow you a little bit better of a window to get him to die. Yeah, so again, and hopefully you're seeing, again, these are the lightest touches possible to just kind of nudge the meta in the direction. I still imagine Shaco playable, Yi playable, things like that. On the 4 and 5 cost side, Riven this is probably one of the bigger changes. Riven is doing well. She's doing well in Blade Master comps, Cybernetic comps, but the problem is she's never really the star of her own show. So by nerfing some of those other aspects, like the Sniper and the Yi a little bit, it gives us a little room to buff Riven confidently, so that she can maybe be the star that she's supposed to be as a 4 cost. So again, we're going very light here, which is 50 HP and 10 MR, so she won't struggle as much with late game magic damage. And there's just one small thing, is like there was a tiny bug with her attack speed ratio, so she wasn't benefiting from Chrono as much as she should. Very small degree here, we're talking 0.05, but that's fixed. On the 5 cost side, Gangplank, I mentioned this in the patch post-mortem. We buffed him 100 spell damage last time, and he went from the worst to the best. Little much. So we're pulling back on that just a little bit. So now, from the 10-15 point, it is a 75 damage buff instead of a 100 damage buff. This should nudge him back down in the direction. This should also be a slight hit to mech comps in the late game. But yeah, he shouldn't quite be as powerful. Lastly is Xerath. Xerath is right about where we want him, which is that he's sort of that glass cannon that if you can get to cast will blow up teams, but it's just not quite enough. So again, we're giving him a very light nudge, which is about 10% spell damage at each level. So Xerath, once you can get him to cast, will be a little bit better. This won't magically make him amazing. He still has the same weaknesses he does on live right now, which is he struggles to get that cast off. He has to be protected. So I don't see him becoming like the top tier pick because of this. But if you do get it off, you should be able to have a little bit more spell damage and blow things up a little quicker. So hopefully that nudges him a little bit to not quite be, the worst 5 cost right now. Finally, on the items, we have 2 changes. Hand of Justice, we're actually pretty happy with. We think this change made the item a really good item, but we just want to nudge it down a tiny bit. We like this number too because it's now the same healing value as Bloodthirster or Gunblade. It's just you get both. So this should bring it down a little bit, and should make it a slightly more fair item. It wasn't too overpowered. Hopefully in the future we'll talk about that item a little bit more. But yeah, slight nudge to Hand of Justice. And then this is probably the other big change. Titan's Resolve. We're changing it from 50 max stacks to 25 max stacks. This does a couple things. First off, yes, this is a nerf to the mech. Titan's Resolve mech was pretty much the only comp that could ever get this to 50 stacks. And when you did, you're doing double damage. It was pretty crazy. So mechs are not going to be able to do double damage anymore. They'll only be able to do 50% more damage. But what this also does is I think this opens up a lot more people to use this item. Because now this might be good on like a Mordekaiser or a Jace or something like that, because they'll hit the 25 stacks much sooner. And so hopefully this item will actually be more useful on a wider variety of comps, because they'll be able to get those 25 stacks and get that armor and magic resist buff that happens when you reach max stacks. From our playtest, this has been successful, so hopefully that is what happens on live and more people are happy to build Titan's Resolve. So, that's it for the patch. As you can see, it's kind of a small patch, and as I mentioned, it's all about nudging things in the direction. We don't want to do any crazy changes before, all these big qualifiers and the finals, but hopefully this makes it even more balanced than what you're seeing on live right now. So let us know what you think. Hopefully you enjoy the patch. This is the second to last patch of Galaxies, so we're getting pretty close. So yeah. All right, that's going to do it for me now. Until next patch, take it easy.